This is a true story, and it has two parts. Let me begin with the first one. At the end of every year, there is a holiday period of 2 weeks. We were very happy and decided to go to the UK to visit our parental uncle. The journey to the UK from Netherlands take about 7 hours. One of my uncle lived with us in the Netherlands for work, but his family lived in the UK, and he was also joining us on the trip because he wanted to see his family. We had 2 cars for the journey. After covering a distance of 3 hours, we got on the ferry to Paris, and then we continued by car. Finally reached our relatives' home in the UK. All the cousins were together, and we were having a great time. We watched horror movies and had a lot of fun together. After spreading for days in the UK, it was time to return home. First we reached Paris and booked a ferry, parking our car inside. We went to the restaurant and ate some food. That night the wind was very strong. The ferry was moving so much that no one could stand up straight. I started feeling nauseous because of the rough movement of the ferry. I stood up and made my way to the washroom by holding on to things to steady myself. Once inside the washroom, I felt like someone was standing behind me. I turned around, there was no one there. Then I felt someone's breath on my neck, but I was scared. I hardly left the washroom and went back to my seat. The ferry was still moving roughly, and many people were screaming, but we all stayed calm. After reaching Paris, we got back into our car and continued our journey home. I was in my uncle's car and everything seemed fine. We eventually reached our hometown. My uncle needed to pick up something from his home, so he stopped, and the rest of our family continued on without us. After getting the item, my uncle and I got back into the car, since he needed to drop me off at my house, which was just 5 minutes away. It was night time, and one side of the road had houses, while the other had a lake and trees. It was a spooky scene at 3 a.m., but we were used to it and didn't think much of it. However, we drove further. We noticed something ahead on the road. At first, we thought it might be a cyclist on the bike lane, but it wasn't moving as we got closer. The scene became clearer. It was a doll sitting on its knees, but it was unusually tall. We ignored it, thinking maybe someone had lost their doll. As we were about to pass the doll, it suddenly turned its head and looked at us. We screamed loudly, and my uncle sped up the car. He kept saying they came with us. They came with us. I was not sure what he meant. But when we reached home, we told the whole story to our family. They immediately called a religious person to check on us, but he performed some rituals to help us and get rid of the ghost. Now, let me tell you why these ghosts appeared to us. 11 years ago, most of our family lived in Pakistan. While we were living in Europe, we decided to visit Pakistan. Our family had a big house with about 30 members, most of whom were children. We were very happy to visit our cousins, and we spent a lot of time together. One day we went up to the roof to play, which was on the 2nd floor of the house. No one ever went up to the 2nd floor because there was a room that was always locked. The room had a big lock on it, and we became curious about what was inside. I asked my cousins why the door was always closed, but they didn't know either. We decided to ask one of our uncles about it, so we sent one of our cousins to inquire. Our cousin came back crying, saying that his father became very angry when he asked about the room. This made us more curious. We decided that we would sneak into the room that night and explore that night. We all slept in the same room, but one of our cousin had secretly brought the keys. We took some torches and headed up to the second floor. We unlocked the door, and the noise of the door lock opening was eerie. When we opened the door, there was a creaking sound. We stepped inside and saw some old furniture and old things. There was not anything special in that room. We felt disappointed. We left the door open and went back downstairs. Later that night, while we were sleeping, the AC in our room suddenly turned off. We called our uncle to check it, and he came to inspect the AC. He couldn't find anything wrong with it, and as he was trying to switch it on, the AC turned on by itself. We found that incident not odd and slept. The next night, one of her cousins went to the kitchen for water and felt someone walking behind him. He looked back, but there was no one there. And as he continued walking, he felt someone's breath on his neck. Scared, he quickly drank his water and came back to tell us what had happened. He also told other family members about the incident. The following night, our aunt had a similar experience while going to the kitchen, and then days after, something more unsettling happened. There was a nearly red couple in our home, my youngest uncle and his bride. His bride was brushing her hair in front of the mirror when she felt something touched her head. She looked around but saw nothing. Then she saw a woman with long hair sitting on the top of the cupboard laughing. She fainted from the shock. My uncle found her unconscious on the floor. He immediately called for help. We rushed her to hospital, and she regained consciousness. She told us the whole story. Our elder aunt said he has come out. He has come out the next morning. Everyone gathered in the lounge looking very worried. They called for us and asked if we had opened the locked room on the second floor. Embarrassed, we admitted that we had. One of my uncles slapped my cousin, saying he had told us never to go into that room. We disobeyed. It was then that we learned the full story. When our uncles were building that house, that they had started experiencing paranormal activities at construction site. The labor reported strange occurrences, and eventually a religious scholar was called to deal with the situation. The scholar communicated with the spirits, and they told him that the land where the house was being built belonged to them. They didn't want humans to live there. It was a difficult situation, but our uncle struck a deal with the spirits. They agreed to build a room for the spirits, and in return, the spirits promised not to harm or scare the family, as long as no human even entered their room. But we had entered the room unknowingly, breaking the agreement, and that's why spirits become angry. The uncle, who now lives in the UK, once tried to get rid of the house of the spirits, but instead the spirit followed him to UK, and now, whenever we visited the UK, they came with us, but once they realized that we are not responsible for disturbing the room, they left us alone and never came back.